coming up on See Hear Love.
I think for some women, they might feel like, if I can't succeed and if I can't have a choice, if I can't have a voice, then I don't want you to either. And so I think that comes from a lot of insecurities, probably from, I'm not smart enough or I'm not pretty enough or tough enough. So there's like definitely a jealousy there, I think.
Hmm. And Trifina?
I completely agree with all of what was said before. I also think there's a part where we are a byproduct of our system and structure. And so we are in a society that is a patriarchal society where a lot of misogyny runs rampant, right? Like most people in power are still men. And I think there's roles that women are taught from a very young age, from before we're even born, of what we need to ascribe to.
You are seen, you are heard, you are loved by God. You're not alone, you're fully known, you are loved by God.
Well, welcome back to See Hear Love, and it is the amazing, formidable women's panel.
Yes, it is.
Cheryl, it's
I'm
great
so
to have
excited.
you back here. How are you doing?
Listen, I'm doing great. I think this topic is not only going to heal and challenge some people, but I think it's going to bring up a lot of stuff.
And you were the one who was like, we got to go with Mean Girls.
We do.
And I said in that, it's important that we talk about it, identify it, process it, share our stories. And the New York Times calls it grown-up Mean Girls, based on the movie from, I don't know, 1,000 years ago with Mean Girls.
Right.
So anyway, I'm thank you for bringing that topic to us. And hey, Esther and Trifina, welcome. Hi.
Hey,
Cheryl, we didn't get the memo.
I know.
We got-
Look at this. It's like on Wednesdays we wear pink. That was that.
And now we're green, and we didn't get that.
Yes.
So I'm so glad that we're together to talk about Mean Girls, because I think all of us have experienced something to do with Mean Girls. So I want to ask you this question to start off the show. Have you ever been a mean girl? Now, I'll be honest, have you ever been a mean girl as an adult woman, been a mean girl to somebody? So Trifina, kick it off. Have you ever?
We're just going there.
Confession time.
Yes.
It is. I would love to think that I'm someone who, is loving and champions and encourages women. And I think for the most part, that's what I desire to give other women. But my husband reminded me, he's like, when we first started dating, anytime we would be walking or driving and there'd be another South Asian woman around, he's like, immediately you're like giving her cut eye. And he's like, what is going on? And I realized, not cognitively, what I was doing is like, one, I'm like judging you. I'm giving you a once over, which itself is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'm like, oh, hey, you look like me. You're kind of acting like me. I think you're doing me better than me. I don't think there's room for both of us. So let me make sure that I take you down a level, which is horrible.
Wow. That is Mean Girl. Sorry, that is Mean Girl. That is Mean Girl, Trifina. But thank you for your honesty. It is. We're going there. Cheryl, have you ever been a mean girl?
This is going to change the viewership.
Oh, no.
This
Get
moment,
ready.
Get
Okay.
ready. Strap in. So growing up, I was an absolute bully. All throughout my teens and going into my early adult years. But and it's going to be a great topic because I was broken. It was because I was hurt and I was dealing with a lot of rage myself. And so I was faced with my mean girlness because as a minister in my church, we have altar call on Sundays. Strap in. We have altar calls on Sundays, and this young lady came up. I was a young minister, just green. And I extended my hands to pray, and she went into a panic attack. And she said, you don't remember me. You don't remember me. You were my bully. And I was like, oh, at the altar. And the Lord was like,
Okay.
I had to make it right. But you know what? I realized how many people I had damaged as I was damaged along the way.
Okay.
We're good now, but what a moment of
Yes.
seeing the effect of it.
Yeah. Okay, so you were a mean girl.
I was
Okay. Esther,
Yes.
were you a mean girl? Have been a
I
mean
was
girl.
going to say, maybe we should be asking the women in our life if we're the mean girl or not. I think sometimes we're oblivious. But you know what? I tried my whole life to really not be the mean girl because I was the one that was bullied a lot. And so I vowed I would never be the person that was bullying or making a woman feel less than. But if I'm completely honest, the greatest challenge for me in this area is actually in my own family. I think that in family, we have, no filter, and often we don't have a whole lot of grace for one another. So where we're gracious with other people or women in our life, especially me, I'm like, a champion of other women, but then when it comes to the women in my family, I have a hard time. And,
Yes.
I live with my mother-in-law. We can't communicate to one another. We come from different cultural backgrounds. And sometimes the frustration that just builds up and builds up from a lack of communication. I hate how I am around her. I hate the, the walls that go up and the boundaries and all of that. I don't want that, but I honestly don't know how to get past that with my own family.
Well,
so I am curious to see where this
Yes,
conversation
good
goes.
discussion. So mean girl, mean girl, mean girl. And I would say for mean girl, I would say all of these echo a bit of myself in that, yes, when I feel and have felt threatened by a woman or feel jealous of a woman, what she's accomplished, in the mean girl way, passive aggressively, keep her out, no space at the table,
Wow.
and shut her out. And we can talk more about that, about what that is. So I wanted to start off the show because I think we need to just let our viewers and listeners know we've all been mean girls. We know where you're coming from.
Yes.
So this is the show where we're going to restore healing, understanding in that. So
My goodness, Melinda, we are going there today.
we are.
Well, she has endured panic attacks, anxiety, depression for years. It was rooted in her traumatic childhood. And now, as an adult, an author, a speaker, and a podcaster, Bonnie Gray has embraced her identity as God's beloved child and found strength to make peace with her past and imagine a joyful future. She longs to help women take steps to get unstuck from the cycles of emotional exhaustion, toxic relationships, and earlier she sat down with Melinda to get this, to share her own personal story of being in the receiving end of a mean girl moment and her advice on how to respond with compassion and peace. We all need that. Here's the conversation.
Bonnie Gray, it is such a pleasure to have you here on See Hear Love. What are your thoughts about why women, grown-up women, still are mean to other women?
Okay, I have to tell you a story because, I am actually a pretty quiet person. I'm not quiet when it comes to encouraging others and I love, helping others, cheering people on. But when it comes to my own self, I'm pretty quiet. So one time there was this retreat I was invited in, and it's all these different writers. And there are some people you could tell right away that they were the popular ones. They're the extroverted ones and everybody's flocking to them. And then I'm new and I'm one of the few Asians that are part of this community. And I flew in for this. And so it's time to go eat. And so, all the popular people are trying to figure out, which car to go to, da-da-da-da-da. And then just by God's grace, somebody that I had talked to, I didn't know, sometimes with these retreat or conferences, somebody I talked to apparently was one of these popular girls. And she's like, oh, Bonnie, come in our car. So I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to meet, other people. So we sit in the car in the back and suddenly somebody opens the door, a mean girl, and she literally climbs over me. She puts her butt right in between me and this other person. She literally shoves me out. She's like, yeah, no, seriously. And I'm a grown-up woman, okay? So she's like, oh, no, you can go in the other car. This car is for so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, listing the names. You can go in that other car over there. And because she just starts chatting with this other new friend that had invited me. So that new friend, didn't even get a chance to say anything because this other mean girl already shoved me off and told me to go. I literally was standing there at the door, and it's kind of like all those wounded places I had been rejected before. It just all was, oh my gosh, I was like a grown-up woman. I was trying my hardest not to burst into tears. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was terrible. I sat over in the other car.
So why do you think?
Well, because I should have said something. I should have said hey, no, but I couldn't. So I just the inability to speak when somebody is dissing you or, putting it aside. I mean, that is so traumatic, right? Okay, so why do you think she did that? So I think there's two reasons. One, she needed her worth so desperately, it didn't matter what it took. And plus, I'm probably easy target. I'm a quiet person, so that's the second reason. If people, I would imagine, just from a shepherd's heart, not to be judgmental towards her, but really if through a shepherding heart, if that happened to my daughter or son, I would say, you know what? I think that this person probably hasn't been loved very well. So it's really important for her to like get to whatever she needs. She doesn't see you. And so you're invisible to her, but you know what? You're not invisible. And I'm so sorry. That's so painful. Come here. I would just give this person a hug. And I was like, see, that's why God's going to use that brokenness for something beautiful. Now you're going to be able to notice that quiet person, the person that thinks is like, oh, it doesn't matter if nobody talks to her or him. And so that's what I've done, because I've gone through my own journey of, healing. So now I can be able to say that to myself. I can say that to my children. I can say that to another woman that I've met. I'm like, yeah, I am so sorry. That is so painful. That is so wrong. You don't deserve that. Just affirming that feeling and then say like, you know what? God is going to use that. Just like Emma said to me, right? God is going to use that. You're going to be that voice.
It's our first ever See Hear Love conference coming on Saturday, March 26, 2022, and the theme is making space. Making space for life-giving friendships, leading yourself and others well, for loving your neighbors, and for Sabbath and rest. We hope you join me and our See Hear Love co-hosts and special guests, along with our amazing keynote speakers, Annie F. Downs, Joe Saxton, Holly Forche, and Shayla Visser, for an afternoon of fun, laughter, celebration, friendship, prayer, and tons of learning and activities. We'd love for you to join us March 26, 2022. And for more information, go to seehearlove.com/conference.
Okay.
Good?
Bringing up a lot of stuff. This is such a good conversation.
Yeah, good conversation. Okay, so we've established that we have been mean girls. Now I want to know if you have been on the receiving end of a mean girl. Esther, let's start with you. Yes, no, and what was the situation?
Yes. Most of my childhood years were spent being bullied in my elementary years. And I was definitely that girl with the bad haircuts. I was poor, living in a snobby area of town. Didn't have a lot of money, single parent family. So yes, bullied. That really led to a lot of insecurity that it's taken a lot of years to get through the insecurities that came out of that season.
Cheryl, what about you? Receiving end of a mean girl.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of a mean girl, and I would chalk that up to a couple of things. In some instances, it was just sheer jealousy and envy, as you said, and then there was some moments that I felt like sort of bias and prejudice, and like you don't deserve to be here. And so I've had to work through that. The one that's really interesting is when people try to take your past. I felt like sharing that for someone and throwing it up against you, but God's redeemed it. And so I've just learned to kind of work through all those things.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Trifina, what about you?
I think there's for sure been women in my life who I've been hurt by, whether it's just they've been violating my boundaries or aggressively just speaking towards me or not able to love well. And I think you're right. Like none of it was intentional. It all came out of their hurt. But the big part for me was I had to learn to lay down a boundary, which was really hard for me. I've literally had to call girlfriends with the script in my hand of like, when you did this, I feel, but it's always caused me to learn to actually speak up for myself in the process.
What would you say is the reason why? Why do you think there's still grown-up mean girls? Why do you think women are mean to one another? I'm just opening it up there. What do you think?
I think for me, I was thinking about this question, and for me, there's a simple math solution. So hurt, deep woundedness, left unchecked, unresolved, it shifts into anger, and then anger left unworked through shifts into bitterness, and you get these bitter, mean people. And so I have tried to remember that behind every mean girl is a broken, hurting girl, and it helps me to shift my posture. And so instead of feeling moments of defense, I feel like, wow, I feel so sorry for you. And then I ask the deeper questions like, who wounded you? Or has this happened before? Because I'm not what you are projecting. And so it's good to remember that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Esther, for you, why do you think?
I think for some women, they might feel like, if I can't succeed and if I can't have a choice, if I can't have a voice, then I don't want you to either. And so I think that comes from a lot of insecurities, probably from, I'm not smart enough or I'm not pretty enough or tough enough. So there's like definitely a jealousy there, I think.
And Trifina?
I completely agree with all of what was said before. I also think there's a part where we are a byproduct of our system and structure. And so we are in a society that is a patriarchal society where a lot of misogyny runs rampant, right? Like most people in power are still men. And I think there's roles that women are taught from a very young age, from before we're even born, of what we need to ascribe to, right? Like, how often do you hear someone say, I hope I have a daughter first so that she can help take care of her younger siblings? Like, we're meant to give up our own identity to care for others. And that may not be everybody's story, but I think so then we as women begin to police ourselves to fit into that box, begin to police other women to fit into the box. And then we're also jealous of women who break out of the box and then try and drag them back into it. And so I think sometimes we're the worst perpetrators of trying to keep women in their little box.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that's so good from all of you. Like, I think, it's like, why are there still grown-up mean girls? And as I'm looking at sort of, my life and I haven't had too many mean girls attack me, but I have in the passive aggressive way, in the things that were said,
Sure.
in the things that were said in prayer,
Right.
things that were, it's not gossip, it's prayer
Right.
requests.
Yeah.
And in the way that whether sometimes I've been sidelined or not, again, like I've said, brought to the table.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to acknowledge it, but I think we need to end it.
Yeah.
Because we're, even as much as like we're on the receiving end, we have been a part of it in the way that we behave. And so I wanted this topic because I think it's important that we address it, identify it, and say it's enough.
Yeah.
Stop being a grown-up mean girl.
Yeah.
We don't need more of that. Women do not need more enemies and attacks, from outside people than from within our own self where we struggle.
And to this day, women are afraid to enter into female relationships because of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, Trifina, Esther, your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I was, terrified as a young mother because there was so much coming at me from different sources, good, well-meaning sources saying, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. This is what I've always done. And if you have a different voice, you become this outsider. And so I just realized, you know what? If I cannot find a community that's going to value me for who I am and who's going to accept and be loving and healing, then I need to create that community myself. So that's what I did. I really just created a community for women with young children where they could come and feel, whole and safe and encouraged by other women, because for some of them, it was the first time they'd had a healthy relationship with another grown woman.
It's good.
I love that, Esther. I love that you created your own space. And I think that's something so powerful because in my own life, having incredible girlfriends has been part of what's been healing to me. Having women who are there to brush your hair when you don't have the strength to do it, or to speak truth in life and like, no, that's not who you are, Trifina. That's your insecurity or that's your anxiety. And so I think it is so powerful to have those women in your life. But yet when there is pain, it's hard to go back into those relationships.
Oh, come on.
Good.
I just want to say to someone who's in this moment and they're going through the checklist and saying, "Oh my goodness, this is me," to find the bravery, be brave enough to make a new tribe.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes we need to just separate ourselves.
That's
from that.
good.
Yeah.
Cheryl, I think this thought too, like as followers of Jesus, what is the call for women as we are in relationship with women, or if we're driving down the street and we see a woman, or they're different than us, they look different, they don't talk like us, they're not part of our tribe. What would you say is good encouragement, that how Jesus helps to inform how we respond and not be a mean girl? Esther, what would you say?
I think from my experience that hurt people will hurt other people. And so first for me, I had to discover who I am uniquely in Christ and that my voice matters, that who I am is okay. I don't have to change to be just like everyone else or to fit the box. And so finding healing in the truth of God's word was really foundational for me to move on.
That's good. Cheryl?
That every person is made in the image of God, and we are all image bearers, and so they are beloved. Jesus laid down his life, advocated, stood in the gap for women, and so to be Christ-like is to also take up that mantle and stand with our sisters, whether we know them or not. They are daughters of the Most High God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I love that. I think we are called to live a life living out of the fullness of God's love for us. And so I think as I spend time with Jesus, it continues to one speak into my own identity, as like the women ahead of me have said, and just reminds me that I am loved. And so I get to now love others. I can't love my neighbor if I don't love myself. And also I think, especially as we've talked about hurt people, it gives me eyes to see my friends and to see other women through God's eyes of how much he loves them, and to also just be aware that they may be functioning out of their pain. And it's not something for me to exploit or judge.
Oh, that is so good, because I think, as I said before, I mean, we need one another. Women need one another. And I think we need to acknowledge, like, we've got to stop in feeling threatened and really be champions. Like, and I think what I'm hearing is that the more that we get to know Jesus and his love for us and his love for all people, and that he sees everybody as beloved, then that should change our posture in the way that we see women, see everybody, and I think that's the call. I think, I don't want to waste time and energy on mean girls and mean girl drama.
Right.
There's other things that we need to do.
Yeah, and we're better together.
Yeah.
We're better together.
I know. Trifina, Esther, any other thoughts on that? That just the sense of, like, we don't have the time to manage in the mean girl space, but that God has called us to more things.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, we have enough fights in this life to not waste our time fighting one another. And so I say, like, if you have time on your hands, like, go fight loneliness or poverty or racism or hate, and spend more time loving your neighbor, love your family, love God. Guaranteed, if you're loving well, you won't have time enough in the day to be fighting one another.
Nice. Yeah. Amazing.
I love that so much. I think every reaction is ground for healing. So if your reaction is to be a mean girl or insecurity in yourself, in the way that you're being perceived and whatever, I think go after it. Like, what is it that has caused that? What is the pain and trauma in your life? Because I think we are all meant to walk and live in wholeness. And I think God wants that for us. And so if we're going after our own healing and aware of other people needing their healing and encouraging and supporting that, then it gives us just a different perspective as to how to view other women and other men.
I'm going to say no more excuses. The Bible says that he that has a friend must first show himself friendly. And I think the woman that's isolated, that says I can, and women are all this, will be that change. Be what you want to see. So be supportive, be loving, be uplifting, and watch what happens. Yeah.
I think also too, one of the things is, especially when you're faced with a mean girl, and personally for me, I think I never take the time to pause and be still and do a prayer. I'm always reactive.
Yeah.
I just want to react and kind of attack. And I think this conversation has really got me thinking, like, whoa, what's the loving response here? And maybe the loving response is actually to be quiet, think about what's going on, and then respond out of love and grace and kindness based on what you guys are saying. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So what's actually behind the criticism, the attack? And that takes, intentionality, you guys, and choice, and saying, God, your spirit, speak, download the goodness, because right now I don't feel good.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what I mean? Like, we got to respond in that place. Such a great panel discussion.
Yeah,
So
thank
much
you for
good
that.
wisdom here.
So good.
All of you. Well, let's continue this conversation about loving the mean girl, loving ourselves, as we go to Becky Baxter in The Good Word, who's the founder of Devoted Canada, an online ministry that helps people go beyond the fluff and become fully devoted followers of Jesus, starting with loving each other deeply and fully. Here's Becky.
I am loving this conversation. It is so timely for the world we are in. Now, I don't know about you, but if there was someone in my life who was coming to the end of their days and they told me they had something they wanted me to know, well, you better be sure I would be rushing over there with full anticipation for what they could possibly have to say. Because there's something about the weight of someone's final words and the importance that they hold. And this is what we see in John chapter 13. Jesus is with his disciples, and it says that he knew his hour was coming to depart from this world. And so he spends time with his disciples. They enjoy their final Passover feast. And you can almost just imagine them kind of sitting back in their chairs, stuffed from dinner. And Jesus leans in with these words that are weighty and important. And he says this, "So I give you a new command. Love each other deeply and fully. Remember the ways that I have loved you and demonstrate your love for others in those same ways. Everyone will know you as my followers if you demonstrate your love for others." Now, Jesus knew that once he went to the cross, his followers would be in some incredibly intense times. They would go through persecution, they would go through disunity and conflict, and a lot of the similar things that we're facing now. And yet Jesus told them, love others the way I have loved you. People will see Christ through you when you show Christ's love to others. Guys, this is the church's finest hour. This is the greatest opportunity that we might see in our own lifetimes to show people what Christ's love actually looks like. And so let's take Jesus and some of his final words to heart and remember that people will see him through us when we show his love to others.
Wow, thank you so much, Becky. Well, guys, Melinda set the tone. When it comes to Mean Girls, we're gonna love on them. We're gonna pour into them. So I wonder if you've got a word of encouragement to those mean girls out there. Trifina.
You know what? You were created in the image of a God who is love. You are loving. You were created to be loving. And I think that's what your God-given destiny is. And so whatever the hindrances that's stopping you from that, I believe you're doing the best with what you have. And so maybe go after what is the information in your heart that is causing you to hurt people. But I just so believe that the person that you actually are is a person of love.
Beautiful. Esther.
Yeah, there's this amazing quote from Danny Silk in Keep Your Love On, and it's only those who value and understand themselves can value and understand others. And so I think that it's just a matter of, lean in, be filled with the Spirit, allow him to empower you to live well, to love well, and know who you are in Christ and that you are fearfully and wonderfully made and that you are his masterpiece. And you don't need to be or do anything other than what God has created you to be and to do.
Awesome. Cheryl, what about you? To the mean girl.
Yeah, I would just say, sis, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and there's no one like you. You don't need to compete. You don't need to compare. And I just encourage you to live a full life of sisterhood. You won't regret it. Melinda.
Oh, for me, I would say the same thing. It's like you are loved, beloved.
Yeah.
You don't have to try or do or control. You are loved, and just allow God to speak those truths over you and live out of that place that you are loved. Such good wisdom and advice. And Cheryl, to the grown-up woman who is receiving mean girlness, what would you say to her?
My sister, you are a daughter of the King. Sometimes women knock our crowns down, and whether you feel it or see it, know it. You are beloved, you are special, he is with you, and you are not like anyone else.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, Trifina, and Esther, for your honesty and openness and your thoughts as we navigate grown-up mean girls. And to you, our viewers and listeners, if you want to join the conversation, go to our social media pages and look for this graphic and share your stories of mean girls. Don't forget that my entire interview with special guest Bonnie Gray is on our See Hear Love podcast, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Go to our YouTube channel where there's lots of interesting, fun content, full episodes of our shows, as well as if you go on to seehearlove.com, there are blogs, bios, and resources to help you. And as we close, beloved, you no longer need to be a grown-up mean girl or person. You are enough. You are loved. Please don't put anyone down to feel better about yourself, to feel more powerful. You don't need to be mean to others or yourself, because here's what you need to know. As you are, with all your mistakes and brokenness, your healing and wholeness, you are seen, you are heard, and you're deeply loved by God, and that is the truth. Thank you for joining us. Ladies, great show. Thanks so much.
Awesome.